Okay, so we've got our vendors created and we have our vendor catalog items created as well. So let's go ahead and create a purchase order. This video will cover the creating of a purchase order to issuing it, and then everything else will be covered in a video that you can do with the purchase orders after that. So go to our inventory tab, you would click on purchase orders. That will take you down to all the purchase orders that you have. These are some previous ones I was working on, so let's start from scratch and add a new purchase order. Your destination is going to be your inventory source that you want to send your items to. So I only have one listed right now, that's Merchant Fulfilled MF right there. If you had multiple warehouses like Warehouse East, Warehouse West, Warehouse Midwest, right, etc., you would choose the one that you want to send your items to. Here is destination details. This is something if you want to include to the vendor, like please deliver in back, right? They can go ahead and forward that information into the shipping information when they send it to you. Vendor name and vendor PO number. If the vendor has a purchase order number that they want included on here, you can go ahead and click it here. Otherwise, who are you going to get your objects from here? You'll click in there. I'm going to go ahead and let's say I want things from Joe's Things. So I type in my J, it isolates Joe's Things. I'll click on that, and for convenience, it'll give you the address in case you weren't sure if this is the correct vendor you wanted it from, if you knew the city that they were in but weren't quite sure on the name. Right here, terms will be kind of legal agreement stuff that you want to print onto the purchase order for the vendor to see. Needed on, pretty self-explanatory. I need this on April 13th, so I put that in here. Your notes are all internal use only, so the vendor will not see anything that you put in here, such as Kyle placed order, right? Then you keep these in here for your own internal tracking. Your status is listed right here. This is the status of this purchase order. 5 statuses for a purchase order. You have draft, you have issued, you have received, you have completed, and you have canceled. Draft, that is anytime you're just working on the purchase order and it is not sent over to the vendor yet. Issued is when you've created the purchase order, sent it to the vendor, and you're waiting on them to send you shipment. Received is going to be tripped and set as your status the second you receive any of the items from this purchase order. Completed is when the purchase order is fully completed and paid for. And canceled is obviously when you cancel, or if you cancel, the purchase order. Shipping strategy and cost, you would put in your strategy right here. Let's say it's ground. This is your shipping cost modifier, basically. You have 2 choices, flat rate or per unit. Flat rate, let's say I order 10 things, right? I just pay $10 for the shipment of all those things, whether they would ship them in 1 or 2, 3, however many shipments. Per unit is going to be cost per item. So if I order 10 things, right, and I have a per unit cost of 50 cents, 10 times that 50 cents would be $5. You'll see this a little bit more in effect in a minute here with the extended price on the line items, but for right now, let's keep it nice and simple and say that it is $4 flat rate shipping. So line items. Now this is where you're adding in your vendor catalog items, which is why you have to set up your vendor catalog items before you're able to create purchase orders. I cannot select line items until I have selected my vendor up here. So since this is selected, I can now go ahead and search through the vendor catalog items available for that vendor. So I start typing in SK. Great. These are the 2 items I had input for my vendor, SKU 3 and SKU 2.5. So we'll add in 2.5 first. It's going to bring over the information that we had put in on our vendor catalog item earlier. The MPN right here, these are green socks, right? This is line item number 1, green socks. The item, this is our SKU, what we're calling it, SKU 2.5, and the description, if available, which you'll notice here on SKU 3, it will not have a description. Click that, because this is an item that you added into the catalog items for that vendor, but that you do not have as a listing yet. You update that in your listings, it will then have that description. I'll get to these 4 after I go through this. Order number, obviously, how many of these do you want? All right, so we'll say 3 and 4. The price is gonna pre-populate with what you put in your vendor catalog items as the default price. You can obviously change these prices to be whatever the agreed upon cost is between you and your vendor at this point though. So stock is going to be how many you physically have at that source warehouse. So my source warehouse is my MF, my merchant fulfilled. I have 0 of these in stock, physically 0 of them on me. Awaiting is going to be how many, a sum basically, of the undelivered items from incoming POs and transfer requests. So real quick, a transfer request will be more covered in another video, but it's basically shipping. It's like a purchase order, but internally. So if you have more than one warehouse, you have east and west, and you have 500 of an object at one spot, but only 20 in another, you want a transfer request of, let's say, 200 from east to west, right? So that it's a little bit more balanced. That is what a transfer request is for. Your available is going to be the number you're advertising for sale on marketplaces. Basically here, as you can see in the text pop-up, the stock minus items ordered but not yet picked. Projected then is going to be your await and your available categories added together. So the extended price, this is the unit price, right? So $2 plus the shipping cost modifier, right? So in simple terms here on this one, this was $4 for the entire shipment. So it's going to split that $4 up amongst these 7 objects that you're ordering and then add that to your base unit price. So basically, if you, instead of thinking about I'm paying this much plus shipping, this is how much each object is going to be costing me here. It's $257 adding in the shipping costs, right? If you were to change this modifier from flat rate to per unit, you then get a much higher price in this case because you're saying it's $4 to ship each object instead of shipping all of them. For simplicity's sake, I'll keep it on flat rate. If you wanted to get rid of a line item because you misentered it or you just no longer want it, whatever reason, obviously you click delete right here. When you select your vendor, automatically, if you supplied a vendor email, when you created that vendor, it will populate down here so that when you click issue purchase order, great, it was added and issued successfully. The status changed to issued, and now that email will receive a PDF copy of this purchase order. Cover more options that you're going to have to do with purchase orders from the issued state in the next video.